Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. I'm your guy, Boulanger, and up next, we're going to get into the conversation of why Lamar Jackson should not want to be a Baltimore Raven any longer. Again, why Lamar Jackson should not want to be a Baltimore Ravens player any longer. Let's go. The bonus point usually comes at the end, but let's just go ahead and get the bonus out of the way. The bonus is contract and disrespect. The lack of an adequate contract that has gone on for the period of 2 years should certainly create a level of disrespect with Lamar Jackson. And so that's the simple and easy excuse or reason why Lamar should want out, right? But let me give you three additional reasons that sometimes we don't acknowledge, okay? The first reason is the Baltimore Ravens have a lack of direction and leadership, okay? Now, my first point in that is that as this ship has certainly sprung a leak, okay, nobody has taken the role of spokesman and come out and said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is where we're headed. Here's how we're going to resurrect this roster. This is how we're going to resurrect the camaraderie. Here's how we're going to resurrect the morale. Because if we think the morale is not low, then we're mistaking ourselves. The Baltimore Ravens morale is going to be at an all-time low. Number one, you're going to walk into the season with probably Tyler Huntley, a guy you cannot believe in. He's good to win a couple of games, but not to go for 17 games. Okay. Now, I'm not saying what won't happen and what will happen as far as trades and things of that nature, but I'm talking about the state of the Baltimore Ravens right now. And the state of the Baltimore Ravens looks like there is no leader. You know, these guys jump in front of the microphone, Harbaugh and EDC, and they say all the right things, but all the right things that they're saying is separate from how they're carried on business. The one thing we heard right after the season, everybody knew it was an issue, is the wide receiver room, even to the point where EDC makes a comment about needing better wide receivers that resulted in Rashad Bateman blasting him. See, that's a lack of leadership. That's a lack of organizational direction. That's a lack of good decision making. Because if you already know you need an improvement or upgrade in receivers, you don't make that public and anger the only solid receiver that you have, although he's been injured. But you basically throw every receiver who is currently under contract right under the bus. You hop in the driver's seat and you drive right over them. So how can those players, not even Lamar Jackson, but how can those players believe in or trust in the words and behavior and actions coming out of the Baltimore Ravens organization from the seat of EDC or John Harbaugh? You understand? The interview before that, the postseason interviews, they said, "Oh, we're gonna definitely upgrade the wide receiver position." He had to be talking about the draft because he certainly wasn't talking about in free agency because all the top receivers are gone, and we didn't sniff one. You see, so even when they come out and say the right things, their actions say something totally different, which speaks to a lack of decision making and organizational leadership. So when you don't have any actions, you follow me? When you don't have any actions, that says you're not leading the organization. You see, because if you don't have any actions that can stabilize what's going on in Baltimore, then who does? If the general manager and the coach can't stabilize the franchise, then who can? We see other managers speak about their team and what they're doing, and then they go out and do it. But when EDC speaks and when John Harbaugh speaks, there's no action behind what they say. And so if we can see that as fans, then what can Lamar Jackson see from a close-up view? So point number one, he should want out of there simply because no leadership, lack of decision making. Okay. Reason number two, the Baltimore Ravens never wanted Lamar Jackson. Now I know that Ozzie was Lamar Jackson's GM who picked him in 2018, but EDC was certainly already a part of that upper echelon infrastructure. Matter of fact, I certainly believe he was the assistant GM if I can if I'm thinking correctly. So he would have known when they picked Lamar as well. See, but here's the point that I make when I make that claim that they never wanted him. You see, when you're drafting, especially in the first round, we've seen year after year after year where teams will move up in the draft, sacrificing draft capital to go get their initial pick. So let's say, for an example, I'm drafting at number 20, but there's a guy I want at number 15. I'll give up number 20 and maybe a second and maybe a late round pick like a six to move up those 5 spots to get my guy. We've seen that done numerous times. You follow what I'm saying? And so in that 2018 draft, I know that Hayden Hurst was drafted in the 20s, but I can't remember exactly what number. Okay. But something interesting, Lamar and Hayden Hurst was on the board at the same time with that first pick they had in 2018. Who did they pick? They're both available. There's no threat for them to, there's no threat for another team to come get them because they own the pick. Who did they pick? They picked Hayden Hurst. You see, if I wanted Lamar, if I want a guy, I don't let that guy stay on the board for 5 or 6 or 7 picks, putting him at risk to be taken by another team. I take him, especially when I own the pick and he's available. I take him then. I don't leave him on the board. But what did they do? They took another player, which says I didn't want him. I didn't value him at that 20 something pick. He was a better value at number 32, which they gave up, certainly they gave up picks, to come back into the first round. But the point that I'm making is if they really wanted him, they take him first pick instead of taking a tight end. You see, and so if they took him, they didn't go out and bring in anybody in that 2018 season to put around him. He played with Joe Flacco's weaponry. They didn't put anybody around him in 2019. He played with the weaponry that was already there. Then in 2020, when he finally won his first playoff game, they didn't come in that offseason and get a deal done, nor did they bring in any weapons. They carried on and went into 2021 and went into 2022. You see, what I've learned as a clinician is when you're working with people, a lot of people end up where they start. And that's the very scenario for the Baltimore Ravens. If I didn't choose you first when I first got into a relationship with you, then what makes you think I'm gonna choose you first now? See, that's been the behavior of Baltimore throughout Lamar Jackson's time with the Ravens, is that they never chose him first. And that started in the 2018 draft. They didn't choose him first then. Yeah, certainly. They went out and got a wide receiver in the first round. But heck, look what they had. They didn't have no choice but to get a wide receiver. And although Hollywood was a stud in college, he was unproven at the NFL level. Although Bateman looked like a stud in college, he was unproven at the NFL level. Choosing Lamar first would have said, let me go get you a guy. Case in point, him and Josh Allen came in the league at the same time. Lamar won the MVP in 2019, first playoff game in 2020. Josh Allen didn't do that. But what did they do for Josh Allen? Paid him and went and got him a dude. That's what it looks like when you choose him first. So it's easier now to see it than to see it in the moment. See, it's easy to say, oh, well, Lamar didn't get it done. He didn't play well in the playoffs, so on and so forth. Well, of course he didn't. He was playing with mop buckets, squeegees, and paper towels. Oh, Belanger, you can't say that. I can. You see, mop buckets, squeegees, and paper towels, they have to be manipulated to be usable. Going to get a guy is good no matter where you put him. Stephon Diggs was good in Minnesota, just like he has been in Buffalo. AJ Brown was good in Tennessee, just like he is in Philadelphia. Now they got better, when they got to their new spots. DeAndre Hopkins was good in Houston and in Arizona. Amari Cooper was good in Dallas and decent. Quarterback play was bad in Cleveland, but good in both spots. So the point that I'm making is that if I have a guy and I'm choosing him first, I'm choosing to prioritize him, I lock him up with a contract and I go get him a guy. But they never did that. And now it makes more sense why they didn't. They never really wanted him. He just happened to fall into the right place at the right time and they snapped him up and used him up. And now here we are. That's why I wouldn't want to be a Baltimore Ravens anymore. And reason number three, which is the most important reason of them all, is going to be more of the same. And it may be worse. Boulanger, what do you mean? I'm glad you asked me. You see, as a fan, if I can look and see the roster, guess what Lamar can look and see even more deeply, the roster. And what I know is that the offensive line was leaky at best. Solid in the run game, but leaky in the pass protection, especially on the edges. Part of the reason why Lamar got hurt is because it was a busted protection on around the edge. We know that Morgan Moses, right tackle, could be a turnstile at times and then make stupid penalties. And we know that Ronnie Stanley, maybe because of health, could get beat and give up protection on the left side. So the best part of the offensive line was where? In the interior, from Powers to Lindenbaum to Zeitler. But guess what happened this offseason? Ben Powers played his way out of Baltimore. Now there's a hole where? At the left guard position, which was the solid part of the line. So if the offensive line was leaky around the edges last year, with Ben Powers gone and Ben Cleveland may be a replacement, but he's a guy who's never proven to be able to get on the field. How much more weak will that offensive line be? Well, who knows that better? If I've been hurt the last couple of years trying to make a play in the pocket with that offensive line, then how much more vulnerable will I be, speaking of Lamar Jackson, behind this offensive line with a new left guard? And at the time of this video, they haven't replaced Ben Powers. And Ben Cleveland hasn't shown that he could get on the field. And yeah, you could draft somebody, but now you trust in a rookie to protect part of the blind side. So how trusting am I going to be at the offensive line? Which means we're going to have more of the same. More of the same leaky offensive line. More of the same weak protection. Why would I sign up for that? Okay, let's go to the wide receiver position. Weaponry. Running backs are the same, which, the running backs, if healthy, they're good. But when I go to the wide receiver position, well, what do I have already in house? Well, I got Rashad Bateman, has not completed the last 2 years, has more games missed than more games played. He a stud when he's on the field, but he's rarely on the field. So how can I trust that? Devin Duvernay in Bateman's absence could not prove to be a number one, and nor should he, because he's probably a number 3 or 4 option. And he can certainly do some gadget things. But how can I trust that? James Prochet has been the MVP of training camp the last 2 years. But how can I trust that? He has little to no production when it comes to the NFL seasons. And then Tylen Wallace, an unknown commodity because he barely gets on the field. And of course, we know that could be system and that could be availability stuff as well. But besides, when you get past that, what do we have? We're gonna bank on Andy Isabella, who they picked up and never really promoted and used. This guy has elite speed, but they never saw fit to use him. So what are they gonna do? You see, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm looking at this. It's more the same. Even if they gave me, that's why I say, even if they gave him the contract, why would I take that contract? You haven't shown an ability to go do anything with this roster. So it's the exact same roster. And it's not like you have 11 picks this year. You only got five. So the most you can draft is one wide out because you definitely need a corner. You also need a left guard. You may need a little more depth at the edge position. That's four picks right there. And you may need to double up at the corner position, depending on, you know what I'm saying, the quality of depth. So why would I want to stay with the exact same thing? Because I'm going to get the exact same results. Why would I choose this? And before we point at Lamar, it's not on me. This roster's been like this for years. You see, that's what if I'm Lamar, that's what I would say. It's not on me. It's not because you franchise tag me that you can't get anybody. This roster has looked like this for years. The difference is I was deodorant and air freshener for bad smell. Lamar Jackson was the cover up for this less than stellar roster. And we can say, oh man, the defense was great. No, hasn't been great in the Lamar Jackson era. See, we can't give the defense credit for any of the Lamar Jackson success. That defense wasn't great last year or the year before. That's the year they had all the injuries. That defense has not been rock solid in the entire Lamar Jackson era. It's not like they had a top five defense that was shutting people out. Now they shut down the run for sure. But there was plenty of games where they couldn't get off the field. There was plenty of games Lamar put them in a winning situation and they couldn't hold the lead this year. And so if I'm Lamar, it's like, man, dude, man, I can go somewhere else and start fresh with somebody who believes in me, with a team who has organizational direction and solid decision making. Where the disrespect is non-existent. I can go somewhere else because if I stay here and we don't win a Super Bowl, they're not blaming the quarterback or the coach or the corner who missed a play. All the fingers are pointing to me. How do I know? Because they point at me anyway. See, this is the conversation I'm having with myself about Lamar Jackson. All the blame points at me anyway, and they hadn't done nothing to put anything around me. So why would I sign up for this? Why would I want to stay in this hostile work environment? The morale's going to be low. The excitement for 2023 is going to be low. Because even if Jackson stays, what they going to do? What they going to do? See, if we're honest, this highlights point number one, leadership and decision making. Because when you look at this roster, the most solidified point on this roster is the interior linebackers. And there are some questions, most recently in articles this week posted about Patrick Queen, if they're not going to trade Patrick Queen and create a problem that they don't not have to have. See, that's what I'm talking about with organizational leadership. See, in order for them to be, in order for pundits to be talking about, oh, the Ravens might trade Patrick Queen, there has to be some organizational talk. There has to be some buzz somewhere that Patrick Queen might get traded. So why organizationally, leadership, decision making, why would you create a hole in the interior linebacking position when you don't have to? That's the most solid position on the entire team. Every other position has questions. When you look at the secondary, you have a hole at the cornerback opposite Marlon Humphreys. When you look at edge rushing, you have a hole because you don't have that guy who can go get home at the quarterback position. Defensive line, interior that is, you just got rid of Calais Campbell. So there's a question. Offensive line, you have a hole with Ben Powers being gone. Wide receiver, you have gaping holes, plural. And running back position, there is a question of can they all stay healthy? So why would I choose this? Yeah, all teams have holes. All teams. But the thing other teams have that Baltimore doesn't have, they have draft capital and or they have some cap space to go and fill some of those holes. Baltimore doesn't have either. And it's not because they've already paid Lamar. This problem was created over the last few years with redoing bad contracts. And so, I'll get into that in my next video. So that's my take, man. Listen, please hit the like button, hit subscribe, man. I appreciate you guys for checking us out. Um, let me know what you guys think. If you guys have another reason why Lamar shouldn't want to be a Baltimore Ravens, by all means, put it in the comment section, man. I appreciate you guys for rocking with the GM. I'm your guy Boulanger, and I'm out.